we're here at the legislature where decisions are made about the grizzly bear hunt, that 91% of British Columbians are opposed to having. Our next speaker is Trish Boyum. Trish and her husband run an wildlife viewing company off their boat, the Great Bear 2, exploring some of the most remote and picturesque locations on the coast of the Great Bear rainforest. They are incredibly well situated and have been for over 20 years to observe the habits, the behaviors of all of the wildlife, and particularly the grizzly bears that are so close to Trish's heart. Trish?
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, there we go. Can you hear me better now? Yeah. Because my mother-in-law says I have a really soft voice, but today I'm going to have a stronger voice. Yeah. So my name is Trish Boyum, and I would first like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. Just to give you a little background, my husband Eric and I own and operate Ocean Adventures. We take people to Great Bear Rainforest, primarily in the traditional territories of the Heiltsuk people of Bella Bella and the Kitasoo-Hayes people of Quantu. So it's right in the heart of the Great Bear Rainforest. And I know that the Alikano and all the people of coastal First Nations work really hard together to help look after the bears. We appreciate that so much, I can't tell you. So our guests join us from around the world, and they're coming to the Great Bear Rainforest primarily to see bears. Nothing can prepare our guests for the soul-stirring experiences that they will have with some of the world's most sentient beings, grizzly bears. These iconic bears are a symbol of wilderness and should also be a symbol of how we have protected the wilderness. I don't know if any of you saw in the news this morning, David Suzuki Foundation and the Globe and Mail have reported this morning that 12,000 grizzly bears have been killed in BC for trophies since 1975. 12,000. So I would like to see, if you think that this is disgraceful and abhorrent, I would like to see you put your hands up. Awesome.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, sorry, yes. So I also would like to talk a little bit about the myths of grizzly bears. There's a lot of myths, so I don't have time to cover all of them today. One of them is that they talk, the Liberal government and the hunters like to talk about how there's too many grizzly bears, so they have to kill them to keep down their numbers. Well, this is not true, because mother grizzly bears mate in the spring, but the embryos do not implant until fall if she has enough fat to look after the cubs and herself in the den. And if she doesn't have enough fat, the embryos are just absorbed by the mother bear. So there's, bears have it all figured out. As usual, Mother Nature has it figured out, but it's man that chooses to mess with it. Another myth that is perpetuated by the Liberal government and those that kill grizzly bears is the urban versus rural divide. How those living in rural areas and those living in cities do not agree on this subject. A new poll by Insights West has just shown a couple of days ago that 75% of rural people are against the killing of grizzly bears. So there goes that myth. There's another myth that grizzly bears are always ferocious and dangerous. This simply isn't true. I live among them for 5 to 6 months of the year, so I can tell you they're not ferocious and dangerous. They're, like all living beings, including ourselves, grizzly bears should be treated with respect. And when they are not, they can react just like any one of us might. They are not, however, indiscriminate killers or man-eating monsters. The need that they need to be killed to protect us is just not so. How's everybody doing? Can you still hear me? Great. Okay. So now I want to talk about the true nature of grizzly bears. Grizzly bears are, there are so many things, but we'll start with highly intelligent and emotionally complex. How many people here, and again you can show me by a show of hands, how many people here know that grizzly bears are actually funny? Yeah. You have only to watch little spring grizzly cubs playing when they first come out of hibernation and they're like free for the first time in their lives You have only to watch their antics. You have only to watch how they play on logs, how they wrestle with each other, how they bluff charge their mothers. They're very funny. And we've even watched one young sub-adult male sit back in the grass and pick his nose. So they are funny. They make us laugh all the time. They're very playful. We've seen on a hot summer's day, we have seen a big male bear. He wasn't killing cubs. He wasn't chasing people. He was just laying out in the river, and he had a stick, and he was laying on his back and playing with the stick, and then digging underneath and finding a rock and throwing that up in the air. So they're also very, very playful. They're very adaptable. As I'm sure you know, when there aren't enough fish for them to eat, they go and they dig roots, or they find late berries. Very adaptable. They're also peace-loving, and I've spent many hours on many estuaries in the Great Bear Rainforest with grizzly bears, and none of them have ever come after me, not even looked at me the wrong way. And lastly, on that subject, I'd like to say that to really appreciate the sentient beings that they are, they just have so much feeling and experience things, I'm sure, like we do. There's a mama grizzly bear that we love to watch in Kitasoo territory, and she actually brings the cubs to us to show them to us in the fall. In the spring when they come out of hibernation. And one of the days that will forever be etched in my mind is when, just from me to you away, she laid back in the grass and nursed her cub in front of us. And she held him, and she closed her eyes, and she hummed. They're not dangerous. This is a mother bear and her cub just feet away from us. So, you might want to know, we might all like to know, what kind of people will kill grizzly bears. And I don't call it hunting. I know many people do, but I don't see it as hunting. What kind of people kill bears for the thrill of the kill and for trophies? So here is a quote from a well-respected magazine. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It's called Psychology Today. As an ex-social worker, I follow along with it. It says, animals can feel pain and suffer just as humans can, but since sociopaths have a general inability to empathize, they are able to inflict pain and agony on sentient beings with no feelings of remorse. That's what we're talking about here. So what can you do? It's always good to know what we can do. First, we need to speak honestly about what is happening. This is not trophy hunting. This is killing for the killer's feeling of pleasure or for trophies. I know plenty of people that hunt for their family, to feed their families, but what kind of a person could derive such pleasure from killing a grizzly bear? Why do they do it? We need to be honest about how this kind of killing of sentient beings reflects upon all of us. We need to demand better of mankind and our government. We need to show the government of supernatural British Columbia and people from around the world that killing for cash, killing for the thrill of the kill, and killing for trophies is over in BC. We have an election here in BC on May 9th. Ask the people running for MLA in your riding where they stand on killing grizzly bears. Let the people that are running for MLA in your riding know that you will be voting accordingly. Let them know that you are voting for an end to dishonesty, an end to killing for cash, for the thrill of the kill, and an end to killing for trophies. There is nowhere else on earth as beautiful as the wilderness in which grizzly bears live, and nothing as magnificent and as soul-stirring as seeing grizzly bears just being grizzly bears. Woo! They can make us laugh, they can fill us with wonder, and if we are paying attention, they can make us better human beings. One of my favorite quotes from a fellow called Wayne Lynch, who wrote Bears, Monarchs of the Northern Wilderness, says, "Bears keep me humble. They help me to keep the world in perspective and to understand where I fit into the spectrum of life. We need to preserve the wilderness and its monarchs for ourselves and for the dreams of our children. We should fight for these things as if our life depended upon it, because it does." Thank you so much for being here today and showing your love for the grizzly bears. thank you so much to the coastal First Nations in these territories we work. Thank you so much.